So, it is now July 3rd, 2019. It's a little after midnight here in the central time zone where I'm at. In a little less than 24 hours, this nation, the United States of America, begins to celebrate our Independence Day. Our independence from England, from the king's taxes, the king's religious persecutions, the king's justice that would take away our right to say what we want to say, our right to worship any creator or deity we chose, our right to assemble peacefully, our right to seek redress from our government. The king took away all of those rights because we were a colony. All we were supposed to do was generate income for the crown. Well, one of the things that started off the whole shebang, as it were, was the increase in taxes upon tea in particular, and also upon postage. Believe it or not. July 4th, 1776, we declared our independence. It took a while, but then we wrote a constitution. And in that constitution, we added on 10 inalienable rights given to man by the creator of all. Here in 2019, those rights are under attack. They are under attack by individuals who believe that they are above the rest of us, that they deserve those rights, but not us. In addition to them being deserved those rights that are granted to each and every person, man, woman, or child, in this entire creation, they feel that the laws that we have set in place underneath those rights to guide us, to make us have a more harmonious society. They feel that they are not bound by those laws, and they can do whatever they want, such as trying to deny the rest of us our inalienable rights. Many other countries have tried to emulate, over time, what the United States became. It became known as the Great Shining Democracy. But there is a problem with that. Our nation is not. It is not a democracy. Our nation is a republic, a constitutional republic. The one thing that led to the downfall of all true democracies was the fact that over time, the people would simply vote themselves whatever they wanted, and ensuring the downfall of that democracy. Which is why our founding fathers did not choose to be a democracy. They chose to be a constitutional republic using democratic principles. There are many people, many of them currently in office, who seem to feel that that's a mistake. That's wrong. You know who I'm speaking of. But they either forget or ignore the oath that they took when they were sworn into the office that they hold. In a little less than 24 hours from now, being 12:13 a.m. in the morning on July the 3rd, 2019. Let us remind them that we are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. And also, they work for us, the citizens. We are the ones who put them in office so that they can carry out our will and intentions, not their own. The problem is, many of them on both sides of the aisle politically are only in office because they want political power over the rest of us. That's not how a so-called democracy or a constitutional republic is supposed to work. They seem to forget that they were put into office to affect the will of the people. Well, I'm one of the people. So are you. And they sure aren't doing what I want done. They're ignoring their sworn oaths. They are ignoring the tasks to which they have been honorably set by us, their constituents, the people they are supposed to represent. Like I said, we need to remind them. They work for us. Throughout the 244 years that our nation has been founded, it has come under attack both politically, militarily, socially, from other nations. Right now, we are under attack from within and without. We are under attack by a political party whose own desire for power will tear down the very foundations of our nation. They don't want this to be a constitutional republic anymore. They don't want it to be a true democracy. They want power with them above us and the rest of us below, so they can step on us and our rights. Our greatest enemy since 1945 has been what is now Russia. Before that, it was the Soviet Union. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia and all the other countries broke apart, so they were no longer the union of the Soviet Socialist Republics. They tried saying that they were republics, like America was, to hide the fact that they were socialism to the extreme and communism at the core. Socialism, supposedly, is, oh, everybody gets what they deserve. No, if everybody got what they deserve, certain politicians in office would be in prison. Every single nation which has tried socialism or communism has failed in one way or the other. There are only 3 or 4, I think 4, truly socialistic or communistic countries currently on this planet. And most of them aren't doing too good. There's only, one that I can think of which is doing okay, except for the fact that they are becoming extremely resource hungry and trying to force out other nations, so they can get all those resources for themselves. If you think about it, you know what I'm talking about. This is capitalism. Taxes on tobacco products through the roof. A pack of cigarettes of the brand that I used to smoke many years ago when I was in the Army Reserve, make that pack of cigarettes, after all the taxes are taken into effect, cost almost $7 per pack. Capitalism found a way around that. A pack of these that I smoke costs $1.35 after tax. You know what the profit margin is on a pack of cigarettes for the tobacco companies? If you took away all the taxes that have been levied upon tobacco products, I'll pick out the main one everybody knows, Marlboros. You took away all the taxes, a pack of Marlboros would cost you less than $1. And the profit margin for the company on that dollar is less than a quarter. And yet people say that tobacco companies get obscene profits. What about the government taking all that tax money? Federal government, state government, local county government, the city government, all those taxes. Kind of reminds you of a certain time when we were getting taxed on something, doesn't it? But capitalism found a way around that. But there are people who don't like capitalism. Although many of these socialist and communist countries are slowly turning over to capitalism Even the former communist countries have turned to capitalism. Why? Because it works. Capitalism works as long as the government does not interfere too much. Capitalism is the engine of any nation. Capitalism is what fuels the wheels of that nation's government. Without capitalism, what do you have? Socialism, where everybody gets what they want? In the Soviet Union, they had price controls. A loaf of bread cost this much. A padlock for your house cost this much. A car cost this much. The government controlled the prices, and everybody paid the same. Unless you were in the Communist Party way up high. In which case, you could get that fancy car that nobody else could get. You could get the fancy stuff. You had a special store that you could shop in. Meanwhile, the workers who are building those cars have to steal light bulbs from work because they can't afford a light bulb to put in their bathroom or their bedroom. People had window gardens on their apartment windows to grow a little bit of fresh green so they'd have some vegetables or spices because they couldn't afford it in the stores, if the stores even had it in stock. But the Soviet Union, for the longest time during the Cold War, was our nation's enemy. Not just our nation. Most of Europe's enemy as well. A lot of people out there now either don't want to remember or they're too young to remember. When we were kids, we would have fire drills, tornado drills. We also had attack drills. When I say attack drills, they never used this actual phrasing, but they were nuclear attack drills. I remember being in elementary school when we had one of those drills. All of us children were brought down into the basement, lowest part of the school, little teeny tiny auditorium. All of us up against the wall with our heads down, hands over our heads. And we were told to wait there. We had attack drills at least once a month during the school year. My parents, when they bought the house that I grew up in, before that, we had lived in a small apartment in St. Louis City, right next to Tower Grove Park. But they bought a house out in the county, by the university, by the airport. Unfortunately, by the St. Louis airport was McDonnell Douglas. McDonnell Douglas was one of the known targets for the Soviet Union if there was a war to go on. My parents bought a house that had this space underneath the back porch that in case of an emergency, my father basically took my brother and I down to the basement, and he said, if there is an attack or anything going on, I want you boys to climb up inside there and stay until your mother or I come get you. It's only about 3.5 feet tall, but it was 12 feet one way, 10 feet the other. concrete all around us and over us. Steel reinforced concrete. My brother and I turned it into a hideout. Not everybody had these kinds of experiences. But I know growing up, myself and hundreds of kids I went to school with, we did. 1985, September of 1985, I joined the Army Reserve. I was 17 years old. I had to get a waiver so I could join the Army Reserve because I had part of one of my lungs removed when I was a baby. But I felt so strongly about it that I went through all the hassle, all the medical exams, filled out all the forms, so I could enlist in the Army Reserve when I was 17. I was discharged honorably from the Army Reserve in November of 1985, or 1987 rather. I had busted my wrist and it never healed correctly. So I was discharged. The thing about joining the military when you're that young, that formative part of your years, is you have to feel very strongly about it. And I did. I still do. But there's one thing, one very, 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 very important thing. Each and every member of the United States Armed Forces takes an oath. Not quite the same as the oath the politicians take, but similar. Part of that oath is, we solemnly swear to defend our nation against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Think about that. Foreign and domestic. Then think about those rights on that Constitution. One of those rights is the Second Amendment. We have the right to bear arms because the people, us, each and every single individual, are members of the militia in times of need. It varies from state to state, but there are laws that the state governor can authorize the forming of a militia. This is independent from the National Guard or the State Guard if your state has it. Texas has National Guard and the State Guard. If the governor wanted to, though, he could also form private militias that answer only to the governor. The National Guard can be federalized. In other words, they're no longer under state control, they're now under federal government control. The Texas State Guard, push came to shove, they can be federalized too. I doubt anybody would like that, but it legally can be done. Militias, however, can't be. The governor would call out the formation of a militia. The top law enforcement officer in each county of the state would be the commanding officer of that militia, and he would deputize then another leader who would then respond to the governor. Like I said, varies from state to state. But the militias are specifically set up. So while, yes, they can respond underneath the governor, it's their county sheriff who gets the order to form them, and he is the one who does form them. So the militia is not the National Guard. It's not the State Guard. It's the people of the county you're in. Everybody around you. And the sheriff of your county can call up the militia also. Because he's the one who would get the order for the forming of it. Back to the Second Amendment. There are some people who say, well, the Second Amendment's for muskets, muzzle loaders. Here's my question for you. How stupid are you? First Amendment doesn't say a dang thing about cell phones, internet, and computers. If you're going to put forth that facetious argument, how about you suddenly have the United States government saying, oh, well, First Amendment means you can get out and speak, or you can write out your stuff and have your freedom of the press, but it doesn't apply to the internet, it doesn't apply to your cell phone. Are you so stupid that you want to set that actual precedent? Because that's what will happen. And if you think it won't, you're a fool. The First Amendment gives us the right to free speech, the freedom of the press, the freedom of religion. There are some people who says it also gives you freedom from religion. I'm sorry, but if some part of religion offends you, ignore it. I do. But instead, you've got to get up in everybody's face about how it can't be there. You realize that all you're doing is annoying everybody and wasting time and money? Seriously, think about it. That's all you're doing, is annoying people. And really, I don't think you want to do that too much. Not because anything's going to happen to you. Because someday, there might be a time when you need a helping hand. And because you've been annoying everybody, that helping hand might not be extended to you. Nowadays, we have what is called Antifa. Antifascists. The darlings of the Democratic Party. You are aware that the Democratic Party was the party that brought you the Ku Klux Klan. They're the party who did their damnedest to keep slavery legal. Don't tell me any of this stuff. Oh, the party switched. No, they did not. Quit lying to me and quit lying to yourself. The parties did not switch. Republicans wanted to free the slaves. The Republicans went to war to free the slaves. The Republicans, first party to elect a black senator. They were also the first party to elect a female senator. During the Vietnam War, I know this because I grew up during that time. Lyndon Baines Johnson biggest warmonger around. Seriously, if you don't believe me, do your research. But Lyndon Baines Johnson forced through the Civil Rights Act. Now, I think only one or two Democrats voted for it. Democrats didn't vote for the Civil Rights Act. It was run through by Republicans. but a Democrat president signed it. So suddenly everybody's a Democrat. No, he just figured out a way to pander to you and get you to support his side. He has an actual quote. I am not going to repeat it. But he is on the record as saying that. Think about it. Do your due diligence, do your own research. Now we have a Democratic Party, with the exception of one or two individuals in it, which is so reprehensible, so inane and idiotic, so criminal, that not only are they not trying to actually help with the border situation, they're doing everything they can to exacerbate it and make it worse. All for political theater and political power. That's all they care about, is political power. Why do they want all these illegal immigrants to come into the nation? Why don't they want the citizenship question on the census form? Because the only way they can get elected and get their ideas through office, or through the process of becoming law, is via voter fraud. Without voter fraud, they have no power. And they know this. Back to Antifa. Antifa, supposedly the Antifascists, do you know what the Sturmabteilung, the SA, was known in the 1930s of Germany during the height of the Nazi Party? Do you know what they were called? Antifascists. Don't believe me? It's in the history books. All you got to do is open them. So we have the modern day SA, the modern day Brownshirts, the people who brought us Kristallnacht and Night of the Long Knives. And a few days ago, they beat a gay Asian reporter because he's conservative and doesn't share their views. They threw milkshakes at people that had quick dry cement mixed in it. What is one of the primary ingredients of quick dry cement? Powdered limestone. Actually, it's powdered slaked limestone. It's where they take limestone and burn it to turn it into a powder, so that when you mix it with water, it's very highly acidic, and it helps bind everything together in the cement. So they were throwing acid, basically, acid milkshakes at people, and hitting them with pipes and crowbars and other implements, in addition to their own hands and feet. Simply because they didn't agree with what somebody else believed or said. And they call themselves anti-fascists. I call them thugs. Then you have people who go around pointing, oh, that's a Nazi, he's a Nazi, he's a Nazi, he's racist. You idiots do know that the Nazi Party was the National Socialist Workers' Party. That's its name. It's in the history books. Look it up. But then you come back, oh, no, they weren't the socialists. Yes, they were. And you were trying to do to all of us what they did to Europe in 1940. So forgive me if I don't agree with you. And forgive me if I will stand in your way. Like I said, we have a Second Amendment for a reason. So you might want to think about that. I'm not the only old, broken down old soldier who owns firearms. Thing of it is, you've been doing small stuff right now, but I know for a fact that you've got plans for bigger stuff. Been reading about all your stuff going around. Some of you people get on 4chan and you can't just shut up. I swear. And the idiots on 8chan are ridiculous. Yeah, I get on 4chan and 8chan. I'm old. I ain't stupid. But you people need to figure something out. You've been slowly pushing your line more and more towards more and more violence. You're going to reach a point where you're going to hit that line where we said, you shall not pass. Yes, Gandalf, I read the books, I've seen the movies. But you're going to reach a point where we all stand up and we say, you shall not pass. And you're going to try getting violent with us. And we're going to respond. And you will not like how we respond. And while some of us may fall, a lot of you will fall. We don't wish for violence. We pray for peace. But at the same time, well, we're ex-military. We're inherently violent people. We signed a contract with our government, with our nation, up to and including our own life, to pay it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Right now, you're domestic. You might want to think about becoming our enemy. You might want to think real hard. Because, like I said, once you reach that line and go over it, you can't turn back.